This video was made in May of 2025. Before we begin, I would like to mention that I am not historically affiliated with either Israel or Palestine, so I can obtain an objective position about these issues. Over the 12-year span of Nazi Germany's existence, nearly 7 million Jews were killed, along with other minority populations, in the simple racist effort to preserve the integrity of a pure German race. Millions of families and individuals were sent to concentrated death camps, where they were regularly tortured until their lives tragically ended. Many of those who were not brought to death camps were frequently murdered without an apparent reason. All of this was the responsibility of one single government, that of Germany. Although Germany eventually underwent a complete recovery, the Jewish-oriented governments, unfortunately, did not. The notable example surrounding this statement is the State of Israel. The creation of the Israeli government occurred in 1948, uncoincidentally following the collapse of the Nazi government. The land was gifted to the Jewish population by the British government in an effort to resolve Jewish persecution in Europe and to permit them access to a land which was exclusively theirs. Similarly to how other populations retain separate sovereign entities known as countries, like France, like Russia, like China, like all 193 of them, or however you think of it. This, however, is where everything plummeted toward disaster. The problem began with the fact that the chosen territory for the Jewish nation was already the homeland and property of the Arabian Palestinians, who unsurprisingly found the unprecedented Jewish invasion to be completely unfair, because they didn't understand that the Jewish people might have been there at some point and that they had not been accepted anywhere else. The Jews did not arrive with the intention of being conquerors, but were simply venturing toward what they had been told was their homeland. They were happy. They wanted to be at peace. They were looking forward to finally not being involved in wars where they were trying to be exterminated. Upon arrival, when both peoples met, each side firmly defended their right to exist there, and did not recognize the opposing side's right to exist there. In this example, Israelis argued that Palestinians were intruders upon their homeland, as it had been given to the Jews rather than the Palestinians. But the Palestinians argued the same, stating that they had always been there, so it was therefore their territory. This was continually a persistent issue until the 1990s, when the Palestinian government formally recognized and respected Israel's right to exist as a sovereign entity, independent of Palestine, and that should have been a complete resolution to the whole issue. They should have recognized the militarily controlled borders, and since Palestine recognized Israel, Israel should have recognized Palestine. But contrary to what you might expect, Israel firmly refused to do the same, and firmly stood against the existence of an independent Palestine. Within the next few years, Israel continued to brutally and unfairly persecute and discriminate against the entire Arab population of Israel in a simple attempt to purify the nation with a purely Jewish race. Does that sound familiar? Well, the idea of purification of race was the central goal, which had also been the precise primary goal for the Nazi government in Germany. The only difference was that instead of persecuting Jews, it was Arabs instead, and on a slightly smaller scale due to the lack of political and military power compared to the Nazis. Even as of today, in 2025, Israel is still organizing encampments for Palestinians, which are largely the same as the Nazi death camps for minority populations. Just as in the Nazi encampments, Israel's equivalents have forced Palestinians into forced unpaid working conditions, or labor as it's more formally called, in unsafe environments without any legal protection. This is exactly what occurred in the Nazi death camps too. In Israel, other minority populations like immigrants from foreign nations do not enjoy adequately sufficient legal protections and are forced into difficult working conditions, just like the Palestinians, which is almost precisely how the Nazi government treated minorities or unwanted individuals, even if they weren't the specific target. Considering everything described in this video thus far, we must understand that Israel has undergone the transformation from being a victim to being a perpetrator, and that the idea of a Jewish state cannot be implemented effectively. Instead of having a place just for the Jews, we must replace it by a prosperous state who welcomes everyone, including the Jews. Other nations, like Canada for example, protect all of its citizens, regardless of their race or religious beliefs. Israel has proven itself to be incapable of fairness or diplomacy, meaning that in order for peace to be achieved, there must not be an Israel. Palestine must win this war. Palestine does not favor Arabs over other populations. Palestine accepts everyone, including Jewish people, and treats them with dignity and respect in the same way that they treat their native Arab population. Israel cannot do any of these things. Israel cannot respect anyone who is not the perfect Jew. Israel does not care about Palestinians. Israel does not care about immigrants. Israel only cares about one people and nobody else.